You got too many cooks living in the kitchen. You don't know what you've been missing.
Welcome to At the Kitchen Table with Soraida and friends. Today I have the amazing Bill Riecke and Rich Duncan, and we are again going to get into the nitty gritty of what's going on in Salem and have real conversations, crucial conversations, and that's what people do at the kitchen table. So tell us about yourself, Bill. Tell me anyone watching.
Yeah. So thank you for the introduction. Bill Riecke. I own Bark Boys here in Salem. Born and raised. I grew up in January area, went to Hayesville Elementary, Waldo Middle School, McKay High School. Played a little bit of football out of Western Oregon. Left the state for 16 years. Came back to buy the business my grandfather had started in 1973. In 2017 is when we moved back here. My wife Jennifer and I and our 6 kids, 5 kids at a time. We had one here, so that's kind of me. You know, I remember Salem being smaller, Salem being a little bit different. I remember when the Ford dealership across the street was a movie theater. You know, things like that. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I remember when Donofrio's bought that, they were going to keep one of the theaters in there still. I don't know if they did that. I think it's all utilized for their dealership purposes now. But I've been around Salem a long time. It's my home, you know, raising my kids here. All 6 of them, 2 of them just graduated high school. So
congrats.
One off to college, one off to work for us. So a lot going on with, a busy family and, meeting folks like Rich, a fellow business owner, vested in the community as well, just makes being here that much better. And we really do enjoy being here in Salem, Kaiser.
Well, thank you for all that you do. I can't look at a nonprofit event without seeing one of you as sponsors, and that's amazing. I don't think I can go to a golf tournament, Rich, without seeing you be the golf cart sponsor.
I know. We came up with that idea of putting the flags on the carts a number of years ago, and now it's just kind of like, hey, can you do those flags on the carts for us? Can you do that? And so, we're, I think, is it the Fire? The Fire Foundation's the next one coming up, so we'll have the flags on that one. It's kind of fun.
Tell anyone watching about you. Besides, they see your logo everywhere.
Well, I build stuff.
Rich Duncan?
No. Born and raised in Salem, proud Olympian. People don't know one thing that was kind of fun for me, that I'm kind of a project guy and I like to take on projects. And I in 2001, I decided to get married, blend a family, build a house, and open a construction company all in the same year. And I figured if I could get that all done, then I'll be successful. And it's worked out pretty good. So I got 8 grandkids now, 1 on the way, so it'll be 9, and 4 kids, and love and life. Our company now is 35 people, and we work all over Oregon and Washington and build buildings for people and share experiences in the construction world. So, and we always give back to the community. You know, it's been always kind of a thing. So even when, we got started with Habitat for Humanity, and we built a house in a week. We framed a house in a week. It was kind of back then they had a builder's blitz that they did. And that led us into doing the Extreme Makeover in 2010 in Salem for the School of Deaf. And we did the haunted house, and then we built a new boys dorm. And then, that kind of branded our name in town. And so now, we're just, like I said, a well-known branded company working in the community and building the community and having a good time.
That you are. Thank you. I still remember that big wrap-up after party at the convention center.
Yeah.
With all the roller skaters and around. Like, that was great. You blew up then, and I've always loved the haunted house.
Yeah. It was fun. We did some amazing things in Salem. And when people say that we can't do things or can't get things done, I always kind of bring back those examples, So, we built that building. We had 43 days to plan from the day we said we'd do the project to the day we started. And we were able to design, build, permit, and we did the project in 141 hours. So we did it faster than the 7 days. And so, it took everybody, but the whole town came together to do that. And we mitigated wetlands. This is a great story because Today, if you went into a developer or to the city and said, "Hey, I need to mitigate some wetlands on my property," you just get the door and you'd say, "Hey, it's going to take you a year or maybe longer. And you're going to have to get an attorney, land use attorney, and all this stuff you're going to do." We did it on a phone call over an hour. Just basically took us an hour to do. Had the state of Oregon and the city of Salem on the phone, and we just traded some wetland properties verbally and got that done. And it was the spirit of the rule, right? I mean, we didn't diminish the program, but we were able to get it done because we all believed in the cause. And so today, I try to give those examples of what a city and people can do. It's unbelievable when they put their efforts together.
Well, that really is amazing. And I have a hard time with that a lot of the time when people say that government can't be run like a business because government moves so slowly.
Yeah.
And that is a great example.
Yeah.
Just get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I go back to the spirit of the rule and find me a page in the book that says you can do it, right? There is a page somewhere. It's just how you interpret it. And that's how, even with permits and getting a project off the ground, there's just a lot of avenues that you have to just find the right page that says, yes, I can build it this way. And so it's a challenge.
Obstacles.
Yeah.
It's like there's obstacles instead of doors opening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think that we're moving, I love right now where we're going in some avenues. So what do you think is going well right now in the city, in city politics? Because what do you feel comfortable talking about? And what would you like to, there's definitely things that I've heard. I thought it was interesting when Councillor Matthews had to make a motion to figure out what the real estate portfolio was with the city of Salem. I don't understand how we have a real estate department with no portfolio. Do you know how many trucks you own? Do you know how many trucks you own?
I do. Yeah. Well, they pay taxes on that every year, don't they? So they should know what they own. It shouldn't be that tough to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what the inner workings of those conversations are with the city and the councilors and things like that. I have found myself being more careful what I say, not because I'm scared of retaliation from the city or things like that. A lot of times I don't know what I'm talking about. And that's an okay thing. I'm not ashamed of that. I gave some testimony to the city council, I don't know, roughly a year ago. And one of the things it was, they were talking about, I think employee paid payroll taxes and things like that at the time. And one of the things I hit the city on was their electric street sweeper that they had, in my mind, purchased. I didn't know it was a grant. So, I for lack of better terms, beat them up pretty good about, hey, all of a sudden you had money to go buy this electric street sweeper, which, by the way, I'm not sure has actually swept any streets. It's kind of weird because I think they didn't have the charging infrastructure for it yet or something like that. So it was a little frustrating to me that they had this. And then I was quickly corrected after the meeting. Thankfully, I wasn't embarrassed in front of everybody that, hey, that was actually purchased with a grant. So I'm always careful to say too much if I don't know the full story, and Councillor Matthews seems to be doing a really good job for his constituents. And, there may have been a reason that he had to make that motion, and the reason the city couldn't come up with the list of the real estate that they owned. So I'm always cautious on what tangent I go off on.
What tangent,
because I want to sound at least remotely intelligent about that particular topic. I think there's a lot of, and you would know, as Kaiser City Councilor, about some of the back. I don't want to say back room because that sounds shady, but behind the scenes types things that happen or need to take place for this to happen over here, which enables this. And I think I had an opportunity to visit with Mayor Julie Hoy about something. Excuse me, and she explained to me that, hey, there's not just one big pot of money. We have to legally have money over here that can only be used for this. And you can't take money out of this to put over here, even though this particular budget over here is well funded in this pocket. You can't put it over here in this pocket and shore up another, and those are things you don't know. And those are guided by laws. So another example of things that I'm always cautious about.
I think it's almost taking a page out of what you said, the CAN book, because what I figured out being on city council is that general fund, you can just keep taking. So I've made motions to where we moved money to where it just is in the police part So there is no, like, this is just going to police. So, but you're right. You don't know until you know.
Yeah.
But I think it is exactly what you said. How can we make sure this doesn't get used on something besides police?
Sure. Bill, I do want to, give you some kudos, though. I think, even though you might feel like you don't know, you at least are present. And I can encourage more people in business to be present. And I sometimes get a little, feel a little alone until I see you come alongside and, partners in crime, I guess. But, we just need to encourage more people to have a voice and try to understand some of this stuff, because I have probably hundreds of subcontractors that work for me, and they're all have their unique businesses that they have, and they're working hard every day to provide for their families and do a good job. And then they poke their head up and their head gets knocked off from some kind of rule or tax or regulation that they didn't know was happening. And, it just happens without them seeing. And so I just want to, certainly thank Bill for, being the, that kind of the outspoken one that says, hey, I'm going to get up and just say something, because I want to open the conversation and I want to understand. And until you ask those questions, you just don't know.
And I think those are crucial conversations. That's one of the reasons I started this podcast, is that somewhere along the line, I feel a percentage of society forgot how to have that healthy conflict and crucial conversations, and let's talk it out and let's meet in the middle. And we're all, mostly 95%, are really good people trying to do good things in their community and trying to live a life and have a family. And
99%, right? Yeah. We're the 99%. And then the 1% that's really loud or has this, kind of this maybe a 1% idea comes in, and they're the loud voice. And then these rules get changed, or money spent or taxes created for that 1%. And it's not the 99%. And so we got to be, the 99% needs to show up. So
absolutely. And thank you both for showing up. Speaking of something I read, and maybe you two will know, did I hear that we are going to have a permit to raft starting in 26?
I did get that. I was at the one of my many committees that I'm on. I'm on a water committee for Detroit Lake, and the Marine Board came up and said that they've increased the fees for your and the types of crafts that you'll have to have.
So an inner tube?
So you have to have a permit now. So it used to be 10 feet long, I think was the rule. So if you had a paddleboard that was over 10 feet, then you had to have an invasive species permit to operate it. And so now it's basically any
so just like a round donut ring.
I don't know that. I think it was read that if you tied two together, right? But so it's everybody's looking for revenues, and everybody comes up with ideas. Right. A lot of these 1%ers, that's going to be kind of an interesting one. And then just think about the enforcement. I mean, we're at a meeting today, and we hear about how we're so short-handed in police enforcement. And now we're going to create a new rule where we're going to have police officers or whoever, Marine Board officers, right? Marion County, right? When they patrol, they're going to have to now write a ticket you're
too many inner tubes tied together.
Yeah. So, that's
time out. Fun police.
Right. Yeah. Common sense is out the window. Yeah.
Yeah. That was one that I read that I thought, wow, that's going to be one to enforce.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Good luck with that.
Well, I think that's one of the things, we're a victim of having a blanket policy set to cover one issue. Somewhere down the line, there was a real issue with, not necessarily, I don't believe it was for an inner tube, but somewhere along the line, there was something that they needed to address for invasive species in a lake or something somewhere. And then, the only thing we can do is, every inner tube you have to get a permit for it. Or if you tie one together, now you got to get a permit. I think to Rich's point early on is that, these people that are making these policies, typically there's no malice behind them, right? They have good intention, but somehow down here, it gets to be a total disaster. And, thank you for the kudos, Rich. That's one of the reasons I think that I'm willing to testify at Salem City Council, things like that, is that somebody needs to be saying, hey, wait a second, hold on here. Let's wave the flag. Let's really look at what we're doing here. Does this make sense at the end of the day? I always tell this story, holding the people that work for you accountable, right? So as employers, we do that. But, we also have kind of a duty to ourselves and our neighbors and our families to hold our city accountable. Our police officers, the city staff, the city councilors, the mayor, firemen. There's a story that I tell often. There was an Arctic Circle fast food restaurant at the corner of Silverton Road and Lancaster when I was a little boy. And back in the 80s, you didn't go out to fast food very often or out to eat at all very often. So I remember this specifically.
What a concept.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it didn't happen very often. My kids, my little kids, they're like, well, can we not have fast food? Can we actually go home and have a home cooked meal? We're just so busy, especially having 6 of us. And my wife is an amazing cook. She would rather we eat every meal at home. But we're sitting there having lunch, and it was one of those hallmark events for us because it didn't happen often. There was an accident at Silverton Road in Lancaster, and a Marion County deputy sheriff showed up, and he facilitated getting the cars moved out of the way, and was about ready to pull away from the scene of the accident. And he had gotten in his car, and he nosed up to the stoplight there, was waiting for the green light. The guy that was sitting one booth over from us, he mumbled something under his breath. He walked out, started yelling at the sheriff. And when he yelled at the sheriff deputy was, hey, listen, you showed up here. You did your job. You're in a position of authority. I would like you to get out of your car, get the broom that's in your trunk, sweep up the taillights that have been left here. This is your job. The sheriff deputy did. He backed his car up, turned on his emergency lights so that someone else didn't hit him, opened up his trunk, got out his broom, and swept up the mess that had been created. Well, that's going back, kind of an old school mentality. If the people that are working for us, I'm going to hold them accountable to do their job, And I think for lots of reasons, we're hesitant to do those things, but I think we need to be doing that. I think it's very important. I wouldn't let my employees show up, clock in at 5 o'clock in the morning and not actually do anything till noon and still get paid for it. I would be calling them on the carpet for that. Now, I don't believe that we have, for example, sheriff's deputies out doing that today. That's an extreme example, but there are probably things that we see our city doing all the time, and our county doing all the time that we could say, hey, wait a second. Is there a reason we're doing that? And maybe there is. Maybe it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. But we need to be holding those around us accountable, and as citizens too. And to Rich's point, hey, if you're upset about the inner workings of the city or the county and things that affect your business directly, there's more to do than just vent about it. You can show up to city council meeting. You can get involved in the Chamber of Commerce, and you can have a voice
and be part of the solution.
Right. Yeah. And there's I was actually guided by someone that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, to not get involved, to not say anything. And the reason he gave that advice is because they had donated to Newt Bueller when he ran for governor a few terms ago. And once Newt lost, there was some retaliation to their business, and it actually cost them, they won, but it actually cost them in lawyer fees about $2 million to fight with the city, or not the city, what the state was going after them for in terms of DEQ and OSHA, things like that. He just encouraged me to not get involved, don't say much, just, have your business here, take care of your family, make your money, and just be quiet. And I actually, for about a week or so, I subscribed to that. I was like, okay, I respect this guy. He's been way more successful than I am. But then I thought, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm a United States Marine. I went and fought for this country. And I'm not going to not fight for what I believe is right here too. I've never backed down from a fight. Not all of them have always gone my way, by the way, but I've never backed down, and I'm not going to start now either. Another thing is I told my kids, we were sitting down to dinner and we were talking about just life in general. And I happened to mention to them, we had said a prayer, and I guess my kids, they all go to private Catholic school. And my youngest son led us in prayer that night. And I guess they have a special prayer they say at lunch every day at the school there. I didn't know what it was, but he said it. And then the older kids started making fun of him. Hey, why'd you say the prayer we say every day at lunch? And I said, well, that's a perfect prayer for a meal time. And few bites into the meal, I said, hey, wouldn't it be cool 10 years from now, to my older kids, your kids could be going to Queen of Peace and they could be saying the same prayer and have the same traditions you have. And my four of my 6 kids looked up at me and said, "Dad, we're not staying here. We're leaving." And
you're like, punch me in the gut.
Nobody wants. Yeah, exactly.
Kids.
Nobody wants their kids to move away from them. Maybe get out of the house, but
Right,
move states. You don't want that. And a couple more bites into the meal, I got to thinking, well, how do I combat this? It was on the heels of being at a city council meeting till midnight one evening, and I told my kids that, hey, do you think I want to be with you guys or a city council meeting till midnight? They're like, well, with us? I said, of course. But the reason I'm doing that is because I feel like I'm watering the grass. And like, well, what do you mean by watering the grass? I said, well, have you ever heard the term that the grass isn't greener on the other side of the fence? They're like, no, Dad, we haven't heard that. And I said, well, typically that's used as advice for young men not to cheat on their wives or their girlfriends, things like that. But I said it's applicable to a lot of other things in your life. And I said, we could go to any other state that we feel from the outside looking in is going to be more friendly or more fruitful for us business-wise. But there's always going to be something there that we're frustrated with. It's just how life is. And I said, so instead of packing all of our bags and moving, starting elsewhere, why don't we make what we have here better? Why don't we just water the grass right here? And that's what I feel we're doing. When we're involved, when we're raising our hand and say, well, wait a second, does that make a lot of sense if you think about it from this perspective? And I'm trying to instill that in my kids is, hey, let's go ahead and water the grass right here and make this place livable the way we would like to see it. When I first told my family I was going to put our kids up here in private school, they said, well, you're the product of public schools. What was wrong with that? And I said, well, I think times are different. My folks said, when you were in school here, we just made the schools do what we felt was right for you. I said, unfortunately, those days are over, and that is unfortunate because there are those that can't afford private Catholic school. And some of those kids get left behind. And that's really too bad. It really is. But, I think we have to water the grass, and I think that's important. I know Rich has his sprinklers on all the time. He's on every board you can think of. So he's watering the grass a lot.
He's just going full throttle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And your grandkids go to private school, correct?
Yeah. They're Salem Academy. Yeah.
But I do believe there's a big difference my kids are 26 and 30 and fine, but there's no way now.
Well, my example, even, talking about business is that, a few years back recruiting, I brought in a family from Alaska and I brought in a family from Idaho to come to work for me. And, those guys, came in and they were here for a short time and they said, we're out of here. We don't want our kids going to the schools here. And, that was a period of time when, underneath the Market Street bridge overpass on I-5 was horrendous, So, there was other things, but the wives of those two individuals, that was their statement was, we're not going to have our kids here. And it's like, how do you run a business, when your public school system is, not attractive to other people.
And entice people to come in. And that's heartbreaking because we are doing what we do for our family and our friends.
Yeah. We're the 48th worst state to work in as a business, right? We're already under the, under the iron. And it's like, to have that at schools, it's important. And influence of schools and teachers is so important. So, yeah.
And it is a tough one for the kiddos that get left behind. And I wish there would be a school voucher system.
Yeah.
I'm a believer in that. I know that definitely there are people that do not believe in that, but
good competition. I think that's you need to have competition. I think that's, let's get into healthcare. We recently have been visiting, we have a second home in Arizona and we've been visiting some healthcare there. And it is a completely different system.
Really?
Available, full service. Welcoming, taking care of you. It's just a different, completely different environment there. And I don't know enough about how the inner workings are, but when you're driving down the road and you see a nice clinic or you see a shoulder specialist or you're seeing, hip replacements, there's to me, it looks like healthy competition of medical services there. and you can a la carte what you need to go have done. And here, again, I'm in a system where I got to get a referral, and then a referral takes time. And by the time I get the referral, and then I go to see them, it's like, it's just it's seemingly not a very.
No, you're right. I lived in Arizona for 15 years before we moved up here and started my family down there. And healthcare, it's not something you think about when you're getting ready to move your whole family from Arizona to Oregon, for example. It's a huge difference. Huge. We had amazing pediatricians down there and normal just physicians for my wife and I. Move up here and we did find amazing physicians, and there are amazing doctors here, but a completely different scenario you have to, traverse to get the care that you want, or, so I think competition is a big deal, healthy competition. I always tell people with my business, I like having competitors. It makes us better. I can only.
How can we do better every day as people, as business, as parents, as grandparents?
Yeah, and it's across the board for healthcare. I always tell the story when we had a back-to-back. We had a child in 2016 in Arizona. We had a child in 2018 in Oregon. And just getting out of the hospital is completely different in both places. In Arizona, your baby is not, you may leave, but your baby is not leaving. They're not taking the ankle monitor off that baby until you've paid your bill or made arrangements to pay the bill. And that's all squared away. Salem Hospital, they throw your kid at you and you're walking out the door. And what happened to us, we never got a bill, but what we did get is a collections notice. So I called the collections agency and I said, hey, you're exactly right. I've never paid this bill. And they said, well, why haven't you? I never got the bill, so I didn't know. And I said, can I just call the hospital and pay them direct? And we don't know. We never have anyone call us and admit that they didn't pay their bill. And I said, well, yeah, I didn't pay the bill because I never received it. I've got your collections notice.
You're like, who are you?
Yeah. So, it was one of those things, and that's just a different way of doing business. In Arizona, for example, you are going to pay your bill before you leave or have arrangements set up before you do. In Oregon, they just handle it differently. And to Rich's point, there may be a reason for that. I don't know what it is. But yeah, no, it's huge, the difference between the two states for lots of things.
I don't know that, but definitely I felt that a lot during COVID. And that is really, I think, that drove me to even run for city council, because I thought, why does that state get to do all the stuff that we're not doing?
Right.
And that really opened my eyes. I would pay attention to a lot of national government, but not really county and city and state. And then I realized I need to pay more attention to state and city and county government, because that's where it starts. That's where it starts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the record number of businesses leaving Oregon, and you just add up all these different obstacles, if it's healthcare or the schools or it's taxes or regulations, it's like I said, I feel like we're under the iron, and we've learned to deal with it. And, but other businesses, at some point you make a decision and you can't do it anymore, So,
well, and with those things, you have healthcare and schools and taxes, things like that. Those aren't new things. I can pretty well argue the COVID stuff and say, hey, our government didn't know how to handle that. It was the first time that our generation ever. It wasn't like the Spanish flu in the early 1900s. Right. So you have these blanket policies thrown out. And they weren't being malicious when they did. They're trying to save lives in their mind, right? So they didn't know what the heck they were doing. So you kind of give them a pass, saying, "Well, I understand why you did what you did."
Problem.
I don't want. Really, honestly, I don't want our government to be good at dealing with pandemics. That means we have them all the time, right? That's not something I want.
Like, I got a playbook.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We don't want a playbook for global pandemics. So it's kind of a good thing we didn't know what the heck we were doing with that. But education system. That's not new. That's something we deal with every year. The healthcare, the taxes, our roadways. That's those things. Being friendly to businesses. Those are not new things for the state, for the city, for the county to have to worry about. And there's a darn good point brought up this morning at the business advocacy meeting, that there has been a lot of publicity surrounding the nearly 500 jobs that were ODOT. Had to eliminate, but there hasn't been a whole heck of a lot about the 500 jobs that Intel eliminated as well. That's a problem, because those are both huge numbers, and they both have a huge impact on the communities. There's a negative trickle down effect to every job that you lose for your communities. We have people right here in Salem that work at Intel that lost their job. People right here in Salem that work at ODOT that lost their job. Well, that means they're not going to go to dinner or they're not going to be able to shop. Whatever that means, it's not good. Both are equally negative, but only one's being spoke about, and that's not good. That kind of tells you where the politics are in this state and how they highlight certain things to move their agenda, right? But all 1,000 jobs are very important.
Yeah, and anybody listening and watching to not just take one, do your homework.
Sure.
You know, because sometimes those 500 jobs, when they're talking about them, I'm just saying maybe 200 of them aren't even filled.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, no, there's definitely some magic.
It's about the narrative.
Right. No, you're exactly right. No.
And I'm not saying I don't know if any of those ODOT jobs, but I would say ask questions.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Because sometimes I'll see that a lot when I'm looking at state we have to cut that many jobs. How many of them aren't even actually filled?
Well, I think we saw that with the school district a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Last year, was it last year? They cut.
Oh, and then they rehired.
Except for the ones that retired, right? Yeah. They cut with 300 jobs. And then the ones that took the retirement. And then after that, they hired everyone back. They just didn't say that, but they still have a budget issue. So yeah, you have to be careful, what you read, what you believe. I'm
Where do you get your news from?
I don't. I'm a victim. I don't.
You just made his jaw drop.
Well, I don't read the paper. Mm-hmm. I don't watch any news. I don't watch Fox News. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch any of that stuff. So I'm a victim of that generation just because I have had so many experiences where I have read something and, I had an unfortunate experience. I was in Germany of all places, and there was a news story about an area of the world I had just left that couldn't be further from the truth. I was like, wait a second here. I'm still, coughing up dust from that particular region of the world. And I know that's not true. I just left there yesterday. And this story that you're telling is nowhere near the truth. So it just gave me sour taste in my mouth for it in general. I don't look at any of the news. I read some highlights that come across typically from social media, but that's really about it. Some articles my friends send me from time to time, but yeah, I'm not a news guy. I grew up 60 Minutes guy. My whole family every Sunday night at 6. That's what you did. We watched 60 Minutes, and that was what you're going to do. So it's like going to church Sunday morning. You're going to watch 60 Minutes, and that was a very informative program, and I have tried to watch that since, and it's not as informative as it once was. That's unfortunate.
It is. Yeah, I believe. And where do you get
Lawrence Welcome here?
Yeah,
Lawrence.
Yeah.
Didn't he had the really thick eyebrows, or was that him?
No, that was Ed Rooney, right?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Where do you get your news from, Rich?
Salem Business Journal. Yeah, that's my new one, is to pay attention to those guys. They seem to be writing articles regarding business and effective things on business.
Aren't you on that board?
I am. What a plug. Yeah.
Good job.
Way to call me out on that one. Yeah.
I don't think, by the way, the 60 Minutes guy wasn't Ed Rooney.
It wasn't?
No,
was he?
I don't know. I can't remember. Ed Rooney, I think, is a character from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, isn't it?
Rooney was the last guy. He was had the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just remember the Ed Rooney from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So.
That's different.
I am going to film on Jesse's podcast today, and he was talking to me about the board and all the things they're doing. So I just kind of just walked into that one.
And again, another plug though. I do pay attention on. I go to the Salem Chamber puts out a couple different ones. One is their public policy statements, are just bullet points about what's happening, and then they have their newsletter that they do, and those are just real relevant articles that are, those are cause and effect articles or notes, and they're not political, it's not somebody's opinion.
I love that they both they take the emotion out of it. Like, give me the nuts and bolts and let me figure out how
Yeah. Well, so many, I think, especially when you hear about journalists and stuff that, and to me, that it would be tough to be a journalist because everybody has feelings. Right? You have beliefs and core values, and that's got to come out in your writings. And when you have some people that have some really strong feelings, it really shows. And so I don't know today's age of how to get good, honest news that's just non-biased. And this is the cause and effect. Like, hey, here's 10 things that are going to happen good, and here's 10 things that are happening that are bad. Right?
Yes, and it comes to core values. and morals and what you believe in. You're right.
Yeah.
You can tell, and some things that I think, again, I can disagree with someone, but my morals might be, or my core values might be different. And that's okay. But I think that it goes back to those 1%ers that are loud and demonizing and trolls. And I wish that 1% would learn how to have a healthy conversation.
Well, just go get a life.
There are options. There are options. There's other things to do.
Be a solution.
Yeah. Well, I remember, one of my really challenges is, getting permits passed, getting through the permitting stage. And
is that city or state or both?
Mainly city.
Really?
Yeah, mainly city jurisdiction. And, you go into this room and you sit around the room and there's these people that, you have to, have them look at your project. And when they use the word "I feel," the hair on my back of my neck just goes up. No, tell me in the book, right, of rules where we need to do this. Well, we feel that you should put more windows. Well, no. Where does it say in the book I have to do more windows? Well, we feel that you need a higher wall out front to prevent the headlights from shining out into the street. Whatever it's feelings, right? And so they're directing development, they're directing things with feelings. And I go, I've been in business. 30 years I've been in construction, hitting 25 years for my own company. It's like, well, that'd be longer than 30 years in construction. I need to change those numbers.
He's been saying that for the last 20 years.
5 years, yeah. No. But they need to go back to what rulemaking was, right? And what the book and the code says that was put in place. And if you're going to change those things, then jurisdictions and public need to have voice and make those changes, but not because, hey, I just got out of school and I just got this job as a planner at the city of Salem. And I'm not picking on them,
Correct.
But they've come out of school with their mission and their thoughts and these great designs and looking at all these different urban, developments going on in cities. And they go, well, I want that here in Salem. And it's like, okay, well, you need to get that through the process, but you just can't today because you feel that you'd like to have that done, because that all has impact, right? And it could change the job from a quick process to a full on, we got to go through public review. And now instead of a 30-day time period, it's now maybe a 60, 90 or 120 days.
Eating money out of your pocket.
The owner's got a loan out on the property and then, rising costs go up. So there's these factors that they don't, again, their feelings overweigh the care or the spirit of the rule of, hey, where is it in the book that says we got to put more windows on the street side or on an off-street side?
What does that look like when you go get those permits and they tell you about all their feelings? Do they say no, or do you have to go back and have another meeting? So it's just a cycle?
Hey, I'll just, not to get specific on a project, but it just changed. If you're going to fight that, right, then you have to go through a planning, an approval process that takes a long time. If you just say, oh, okay, then you got to go back, engineer, change the drawings, right? Add those things that they feel, right, that it needs to happen to go through the review process to get approved. And so, you're in a
catch-22.
You are, yeah. Do you want to wait? Do you want to fight it? Do you want to do you have to bring in, an attorney to bring in? And a lot of people do, which is just added cost and, more fees. And so,
well, and talking a little about politics, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, make it make sense. And that doesn't make sense. Another one that, I have 2 acres over here off of Cherry Avenue, and we had a problem with a homeless situation there. Somebody had been gifted a fifth wheel. They got it towed to my property, set up camp.
So nice.
It was set up camp. And I called the tow truck company. I said, hey, come get this. Well, we can't do that because you don't have a sign out in that vicinity of where they put that fifth wheel that says, you will be towed at owner's expense. I said, oh, okay. Well, I'll come down to the tow company office. I'll grab another sign. We have those in our main yard, right? But I'll grab another sign and I'll put it up. So I do just that. But knowing that if I put it, eyesight height Well, it's going to get ripped off. So I got a ladder and I put it way up on the power pole there. And tow truck company shows up. I said, I've installed this. It's been there for, I think it's 72 hours or something. I've installed this sign. Come tow this out. Tow truck driver gets there and goes, hey, I can't do it. Well, why can't you? That sign has to be at eye level. And I looked at him. I said, well, I know that if I put it at eye level, they're just going to rip it off and say there's no sign. And the tow truck driver said, I know. You're exactly right. That's exactly what's going to happen. But if I tow this and try to charge them and that they take a picture of that sign being higher than eyesight level, then the tow truck company is going to have to pay for the tow. So they wouldn't do it. So you get a hold of the police department. Police department's like, yeah, that is actually, a law. We know it makes no sense. Like, okay, great. We've established that there's a law that makes no sense. What are we doing about that?
Correct.
The city, a lot of people don't know this, the city employs 2 lobbyists, one at the federal level and one at the state level. Mm-hmm. So if you have a silly thing like that there needs to be some common sense added to it, are we using our lobbyists for things like that? And don't get me wrong, there is probably 100 other way more important things for the lobbyists that are in the employ of the city to be tackling than something that silly.
And that's a state law?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Don't quote me on that, right?
No, I won't.
Being careful.
Anybody that's watching or listening, right. Do your own homework.
You feel.
Yeah, right. I feel that that's a state law. But, just make it make sense. Make some of the regulations and things like that make sense. And that's a tough thing to do sometimes.
Yes, that I'm going to have to find out and I'll say about it later. But what's the law and what was the theory behind it? And sometimes I believe we don't poke enough holes at the Capitol in these bills that we're writing. Like looking at it, the devil's in the details.
Sure. Well, another big one that's coming up, and again, I don't know all the details about it, but it's scary, is the Chariots buses are set to January 1 of 2026 impose an employer-paid tax of 0.008% of what you pay your employees to fund the Chariots buses.
Did that get passed? Or
my understanding is
city,
it's going
state?
into effect. That's Chariots.
It was a
legislative
directive, so it's in law, and they put this in. I don't know all the logistics about it, but in 2018 they amended the law through another bill that they put together a non-voted board that had taxing authority. And so there's a non-voting board that runs the Chariots.
You're not on that board.
We're not on that board. No. It's appointed.
They didn't invite you.
It's appointed by the governor. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine then, who's on that board. Uh-huh. And they are going to impose this tax. So now we're going to have a transit tax, an employer-paid payroll tax in Salem Kaiser. And without the vote of people, in fact, from what I understand, they already have a surplus in their budget of $33 million. And again, don't quote me on these, don't take.
But in the millions.
In the millions, right? This tax will raise $35 million a year. So it's like, okay, and you're already in a surplus. Your buses are driving around empty. You have electric buses that you have, and you can't even run the routes without having a spare bus because they can't hold a charge long enough. I mean, you're doing things that aren't efficient, and you could still look for efficiencies before you tax and grow. And so they are moving forward with this. And so, I think that's, again, we have to have the voice, and the businesses and people have to be aware, because I don't think that they weren't going to tell anybody. They don't have to tell anybody. It just is going to get imposed. You're going to get a letter. And it was
from 2018 that they switched it.
Yeah.
And you're like,
2017, 2018, they were writing these bills. Well, they're all done quietly, right? And, what did they say? There was 3,500 bills that were imposed in this last legislative session. 3,500. How does business keep track of all of those?
And how it's
the
going
little
to affect
ones,
them.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the little ones that get written at the wee hours of the night, we don't know, So,
wow. Well, I think that, again, I educate yourself again.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Well-
Go to Chariots. They have a board. You can speak in front of it. That board actually gets money, paid money. You know, city
Yeah, they're
councilors.
paid board members. Yeah.
They're paid board members. Interesting.
But, you
so
know,
your
when-
city councilors aren't, but the Chariots board is.
Well, yeah. Well, when we sat down here, you know, you mentioned the fact that both Rich and I contribute back to the community in which we own businesses. And you know, I know Rich and Shelley believe that that's very important for their organization to do. Jennifer and I believe that's very important for our organization. But you start taxing me close to $20,000 a year for empty buses to run around our town. Guess what that does to my budget for donating to nonprofits? It decimates it, you know? So that just as, you know, when there's 1,000 people laid off for economic reasons throughout the state, has a negative ripple effect, as does a $20,000 tax to small businesses. Yeah. That has a negative ripple effect. I'm not going to donate to nonprofits, not because I don't want to or have the passion to do so, because I simply can't afford it. It's harder to give my employees raises. It's hard to give them bonuses. It's hard to reinvest in my company. That's a lot of money, you know. And to Rich's point, you know, that was something that I think was put in the legislature 8 years ago, and 8 years seems like a long time away, right? Well, it here it is, and no one's budgeted for that. It's not in my budget for 2026 to have another $20,000 set aside to pay to Chariots buses, but it sounds like I'm going to have to. That's going to hurt a lot of businesses. That's
unfortunate. It's death of 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Just cut here and $1 here. And I'm very much, when I hear the words additional revenue at city council, so no, like, don't even, no. Absolutely not. Figure it out.
And we just got done as a community, renewing the bond for Chemeketa. And then we also did the livability bond for the libraries, not knowing, right? Being aware that, hey, just, a few months later, we're going to have a transit tax. And then first of next year, we only can expect that Salem Kaiser schools are going to go out for, an operations levy, which will be very significant. And then again, as a business owner, right, how do you say no to libraries and parks? How do you say no to the school districts, right, that you need, right? How do you say no to Chemeketa and its, what it gives for, continuing education and the career and technical aspect of what they can teach out there? You don't want to say no to those things, but you add them all together and then you go, okay, well, I no wonder why I have out-of-state national contracting companies coming into our area and working, because they can sneak in here, they can bid jobs, and they don't have any of the local impact fees that I have to cover here.
Really?
So yeah, I mean, it's it's just a daunting thing to say, how do I remain competitive?
Right? Yeah, I mean,
so
I think one of the things that bothers me, if I see, when I first got on council, we're buying 5 SUVs for the police. Not that far. If they need it, great. Why are we buying them from Portland?
Right.
Like, stay here. I want our money to stay here. So it's unfortunate that there are these laws, but I think the more of us, like businesses and chamber, and we speak out and we stay I don't know how you stay ahead of 3,500 bills.
Yeah. It's tough.
Right?
Tough.
Needle in a haystack.
For sure.
Well, you got to join organizations that have that, right? So you need to be part of, SEDCOR. You need to be part of the Salem Chamber. You need to be active in their public policy. They have the staff and the team that are putting those things together. They're going to be your first line of defense. And so, you have to just participate in those things and certainly get educated on the cause and effect of all this stuff.
And don't be a Monday morning quarterback. Like, be in the fight.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and you both are in the fight. You're in it.
And don't be intimidated. The members of, for example, Salem City Council, I may not see eye to eye on the workings of the world with the bulk of them. But you know what? You got to hand it to them. They're volunteering a tremendous amount of their time away from their everyday job, away from their personal time and their families. And they're people too, and you can have a conversation with them. It might be real hard during that 3 minutes, when you're trying to testify at a city council meeting. But if you could, see them, out to lunch sometime and say, hey, is there any chance I could get 5 minutes of your time? They will visit with you. I believe they are good people. I don't believe any of them are malicious. I believe that they are trying to do a good job, and they want what's best for the city too. And I think we all want that. They just have different ways of getting there than maybe we might.
They're just looking at it from a different hilltop.
You cannot fault their volunteerism. That is something that you just can't go wrong with. A city council that volunteers and a mayor that volunteers, pretty respectable.
Absolutely. And it's tough to put yourself out there.
Yeah. They're at the end of the day, they're good people and they will listen to you. If you don't be intimidated by them, I encourage
everyone, contact your elected officials, your reps, your senators, whatnot, have a conversation, because they're sifting through all the chaos like we are, just in a different way.
Sure. I think I've never had any of them not be receptive to understanding, my story, right? To say, hey, this is how it affects my business and the people that work for me. And so when you lay that out, a lot of them go, well, I didn't think of it that way, because the idea is bright and flashy, it's got a good feel to it, right? The feelings come into play. But then you get back to, you go, okay, what is the effect of this, So when you increase the fees and you increase the restrictions or regulations, or you have more taxes, what does that do to the business? And our
nonprofits are hurting right now. I know that you're on
Liberty House,
Liberty House, and I was I'm on Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Council, and Allison was just talking about her funding, but all of these little things take impact.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not. I wouldn't be the person that has to make those decisions. But speaking for Liberty House, it is it's a law, right? That you have to see a child that's suspected of child abuse within 48 hours, and it's got to be done with one of these CACs. There's, I don't know, it's 23 of them or whatever that are in the state, and so it's mandated by state to do that, but the state doesn't fund it. I mean, there isn't adequate funding to do that. And so when we have to go to legislature like we did this year, we're usually in that Christmas tree bill, that the reconciliation bill at the end, we get some money from that. This year, nothing. And it's like, none of the CACs got any money. So
that's unbelievable to me.
And not to pick on baseball, but baseball got $800 million to build a baseball park. And it's like, okay, why couldn't you give them $799 million and fund the $1 million
for Portland?
Yeah. So, it's who has a loud voice, feelings, all these things, right, come into play, and then not having enough common sense voice. And so I think, we all have to, that's why I just stay involved in those things, because, Liberty House and, Boys and Girls Club, I mean, all these places have voices. They just need to be heard. And so, and certainly,
and it's about our youth. I mean, those.
Yeah, in my spare time,
watering the lawn.
I run the company.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
Watering the lawn. I think that's a great example. Yeah. We have to. These are our youth. We want them to be successful and thriving, and we want them to stay here.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Right?
No.
Well,
we want you to stay here and live here.
Yeah. I build commercial buildings, so I want to build commercial buildings in Salem, right? I don't want to build them in Idaho, and so I want people to be successful. I want to see them grow. I want to remodel their stores. We
want the kiddos that have trauma to get the help they need.
Yes. Yeah. So,
yes. Speaking of that, didn't you just get the Sherry's out on commercial? You're doing that whole remodel?
It's Black Bear Diner.
Black Bear Diner, right? You're doing that. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Just yesterday was fun. We went up and we just converted the Stanfords up in Lake Oswego to a ChickfilA. And so no drive-through, very classy place. I mean, it's like, Stanford's was a pretty classy place to begin with.
That was owned by Lloyd Center, right?
No, this is Cruise Way. So
Cruise
this
Way.
is Lake Oswego. One. Yeah. So anyway, it was just
nice.
It was just fun to see, and the energy and the operator and today was their grand opening, so I couldn't imagine what I-5's like right now at the 217 exit. But that's the growth and businesses, and I mean that stuff just pumps me up, and I just wish we could get more people to, see what benefit that is financially.
I love that. And that's what's going well. And to remove these obstacles, whether it be permits or I love your story about just making a phone call. Like, let's just make, life is hard. Life will throw you knuckleballs. Like, let's just be here for each other.
Yeah.
Both of you guys.
I mean, I was positive when Manick said that he was able to pass a bill that he's going to get the state has got how many acres of land?
Oh, yeah, it was a lot.
It's a lot. It's like 300. I can't remember. It's a lot of acreage. And they're going to be parlaying that out and putting that out to sell for affordable housing projects. And so you're going to take property that the state has that is not paying tax, and you're going to put a house on it that somebody could buy and live and buy furniture and
provide jobs,
buy seed for their grass,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then now it's on the state on tax rolls, right? And so that's, again, common sense. That's like, why didn't we do that a long time ago?
Yeah, it reminds me of, I think it was last year, Polk County went out for a public safety levy and spoke to the sheriff about that. Very nice gentleman. I can't think of his name right now, but Polk County Sheriff. And he said, hey, the reason we're having to go out for this is because we used to get a lot of money from the federal government for all the timber that was harvested in Polk County. We don't harvest any timber here anymore. So now we have to tax the citizens. Well, had we just continued to log the renewable resource that our state has a plentiful resource that we could be renewing all the time, we're not doing that. So it costs us money out of our pockets. And that is one of those unintended consequences, I think, of a bill somewhere, right? Well, we don't want to log anymore. Okay. Well, but we also don't want it to cost our citizens more money to have to shore up the police efforts,
schools,
right?
Yeah.
The schools. But now we have to, right? Because we're not getting money from the federal government on board feet of timber fell in the state or in the county. Again, I saw that we just
not being
released.
forward thinking enough to say, what does that look like in
Well,
10 years?
I always tell people, in order to make an omelet, you got to crack the egg, and that kind of sucks, right? To crack this beautiful egg that was hatched, but you want to eat the omelet too, right? Well, in order to have cheap housing, affordable housing, you have to be able to log that timber right here, and you have the sawmills that could process all of that. Last year alone, there's 8 sawmills that closed in this state, one of which had been our supplier of product for 35 years. Well, what did that do to me? It tripled my cost of goods sold. Well, I passed that on. And it's unfortunate, right? But that's what you have to do. So my margin is smaller. Products are more expensive for our customers. Well, all of my competitors followed suit, whether their resource had dried up or not. So now we're all competitive price-wise. So everyone's paying, relatively the same amount for those goods and services. But that's an unintended consequence of something down the line over here. We don't want to log because it tears up our forest, right? But for every one tree that's fell, 3 are planted in its place, and we have healthy forests, and it's good for all sorts of things. Economics is good for the environment.
Bill.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy talk. You go on and on and on about
common sense again,
right?
Gosh darn it.
Yeah, it's just those things. You have to think past the tip of your nose a little bit. Yeah, and it's tough to do sometimes. So
yep, and it doesn't always make you feel good. If they want to save the tree.
Well, it's like the incinerator in Brooks that was shut down earlier this year. That was because of pollution. They thought that the pollution coming out of the incinerator, burning the trash, was horrible. And I'm sure that at some level it is. But the unintended consequence of that was there are 18 semi-loads a day.
Yep. And some even going to Idaho because of the way that they're dispersing it.
18 semi-loads a day coming out of Salem area go to Coffin Butte landfill just north of Corvallis on Highway 99. To your point, medical waste now goes to, is it Nevada or Idaho?
One of those states.
Yep.
Fact check, everyone. It's
right.
yeah. But it's out of this state.
It is. They're trucking it. On the roads. They're trucking it.
Wear and tear on our roads.
Yep. And there's emissions coming out of semi trucks. I own a bunch of them, so I know how that works. And then there's some of it that is evidence from the police departments that was being burned up there that now I believe is shipped to Spokane because they've got an incinerator up there that takes that stuff and medical waste and things like that. So the unintended consequences, I bet you we are not better off in terms of pollution.
Absolutely not.
So we have 18 semis a day. Yeah. I have a feeling, right? I feel that the unintended consequence was that we're at the same place we were had we not shut down the incinerator.
Yes. And with all, like you said, 18, I didn't know. I know it was a big number. I know that there's out of state, but we have this big road problem right now. So what does that look like?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
with our roads.
Well, it used to be when I was a kid, traveled down to California. We had family in Northern California. Once you hit the California-Oregon border, you knew you're in California because the road turned to hell.
Right.
Well, now you can't tell.
Oh,
Right. It's just, the road's just horrible from here to there. And, I always tell people the fact that I-5 is essentially 2 lanes border to border, that's pretty sad. I moved here away from here in 2001, came back in 2017. Nothing for the better really changed. There's no investment in infrastructure. The roadways weren't better. The highway I drove on, this is a state highway in Arizona. I drove on 20 miles back and forth to work every single day. When I first moved there, Highway 60, I believe it was 2 lanes east and west. When we left there, it was 7 lanes east and west. That is,
growth.
Yeah, that is growth. That's investing in the infrastructure. That's what makes it attractive for people to live there because you can get to and from wherever you want to go very fast. And you got the highways down there and Loop 101, Loop 202, Loop 303, I-17, I-10, and you say you're cruising 80, people are blowing by you, and you get out here and you're going to have some guy in the fast lane at 54, he's in your way, but there's only 2 lanes, so you can't really mitigate that. So it makes it an unattractive place to be. But there is growth in other states, and there can be here as well.
Yeah.
It would be nice if we could get that.
I think we just got to keep building the team and keep staying involved. And you two really are amazing. And you're everywhere. I mean, I think I'm everywhere, but if you're not there physically, your logo is there. So
Yeah, I got a good marketing team.
yeah, I would say so. That's both of you. I mean, everywhere.
My marketing team, thankfully, is my wife. She feels very passionate about giving back to the community in which we have a business, and that kind of makes it all worthwhile. So I'm glad to have her as my partner. She's way smarter than I am, but yeah, we enjoy going to an event. Sometimes we've been to events that we didn't know we sponsored, which is weird how that happens. And you see your banner there, or your name's on a T-shirt or something. That's kind of cool, Yeah. It is. I don't know what it is psychologically that it does for you, but it has such a fulfilling feeling. We were at St. Paul Rodeo last week, and a kid walked by and had a T-shirt on. I don't know what the front of the T-shirt said, but it had a bunch of logos on the back of businesses sponsored whatever event was on the front of the T-shirt, and we were one of them. I was like, standing there eating an elephant ear. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Watch this little kid walk by. I have no idea who he is, but yeah,
or what league it is.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
We always know in our office when the Marion County Fair is about to happen, because all the FFA and FHA guys, all the kids come in and they bring cookies. And they got pictures of their pig and their cow.
Oh, I love those kids.
Like, we're going to auction this off, and would you like to donate? You know, and it's like, oh, okay. And so it's like, and then once they know you're on the list, it's like,
once you're on the list, you're on the list. Once you're on it,
it's so cute when they come in and they're all decked out in their outfits. And
they're such that's such a great program, and to talk to those kids at the fair and just have conversations, and it's great.
Yeah.
I love those kids. Cassidy Trout, I went to an FFA fundraiser last year, and they had cow bingo or cow pie bingo.
Yeah.
And I thought, what is that? And they're like, oh, if the cow goes on your number. I was like, okay, this is another world here.
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
I love that. So we've talked about a lot of things. What is something hidden in Salem Kaiser that people should know about, whether it's a restaurant or a shop or a win that you've seen lately? I mean, I think a win lately has been Salem Business Journal. It just keeps evolving.
Sure.
Yeah. Is there anything else that somebody's watching? New bakery.
Hey, the Forge downtown Salem and the Clink is opening. I believe today is I think my wife.
Is that French food?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's a little bit of everything. I haven't. I've just watched the videos, and so I'm intrigued to go. But they're going to have, they've got the ice cream store coming in they make it with goat milk.
Oh.
And I had a taste before they told me it was goat milk. I couldn't tell. It was a wonderful ice cream, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, you're like, don't tell me.
Yeah, there's a boba store going in. It's just a ton. That building's it been an interesting building in Salem, former Liberty Plaza, because I remember like in 1996 when it got remodeled way back in the day, and I did most of the TIs in there. So I put like an AT&T wireless store in. I put a couple clothing stores in, and it was just kind of up and coming, And then I went in and took them out of there. and debranded the stores, and then slowly,
this is depressing.
slowly it got down to where we didn't do any work in the store, and then these new owners came in with a new idea, and we refaced the whole exterior of the building, brought it up to, for Salem, it's cutting edge, and then their second floor is it's just so cool to be in that space, So I think that's going to be kind of added to downtown, to have a new place to go. And so I think that's a positive. How about
that is a win.
Yeah.
That's great.
Beat that one, Bill.
Yeah. Well,
what do you got?
Right. Yeah. That's tough to beat. That is tough to beat. Well, I will say this. I don't agree. The $800 million or whatever it was that the city of Portland set aside, or the legislature set aside for Portland to get a baseball team. I don't agree with that. I didn't agree with the money set aside for the Marionberry's baseball team either. Mm-hmm. Not because I don't think it's important, but because I think we have other things to address in our city. Mm-hmm. However, Marionberry's is pretty cool. We went out there. My son did a Shemekia baseball camp. Mm-hmm. My 8-year-old, he just loves baseball, and he was able to be out there practicing next to where they're doing their ball field. And the amount of teamwork from different organizations and contractors that are out there getting that place ready at the time, that was about a month or so ago now, was pretty cool. And it looks amazing. I think that it sounds, from everything I've heard, they're doing a really good job. So I think that's a real positive for our community. And I think they have a good record. One of the kids that my kids went to elementary school is playing on the team. Luke Emanuel is a kid I grew up with. I think he's the CEO of the Marionberry's. Yeah. So I think that's a huge positive for the community really as well. I grew up, that was the Salem Dodgers played there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So that was the LA Dodgers farm team. So we're getting a little bit of that back. Another thing is, I can't remember, Rich, you may know, but Asencia's home cleaning won Business of the Year or Small Business of the Year for the Chamber of Commerce. And another business that I would say is doing really well is Tony's Tacos here in town. And not only do they provide a good service in the cleaning from that woman and her staff, and good tacos and burritos from Tony's Tacos, I like the fact that we have some diversity in terms of those business owners. Mm-hmm. First generation immigrants, I believe, for Asencio's, and maybe first or second for Tony's Tacos. And that's kind of the American dream. That's what this is all about.
And that's what fills your cup when you can start, and then you're just like, what
right,
a win.
Right. It is. And I think as society and a country have come a long ways. And I always tell the story, not always, every once in a while I tell the story. My grandfather who started my company, his last name was Riecke. And I remember when my grandmother told us a story that when she told her parents, I'm going to go on a date. And, well, who are you going on a date with? I'm going on a date with Gene Riecke. And my great-grandfather's response to my grandma was, "You're not dating no damn Mexican," right? And those are different times. Right. We don't have that. Now we have business owners that are Hispanic descent, first, second generation, that are flourishing, doing well. And, I remember listening to her speak when she received her award. And, I'm a pretty emotional guy, and it's one extreme to the other. I'm either crying or I'm mad. Fortunately for me.
Rich, could that be you too?
Fortunately, he's more level-headed than I am. But fortunately, in terms of embarrassment, it's normally just anger. I don't cry a lot. But it was hard to sit there and listen to her speak about the trials and tribulations of growing her business and not get a little emotional, just in sheer pride, and the family that owns Tony's Tacos, and I've gotten to know them a little bit. Our kids go to school together, and that's a great story, and they work really, really hard to do a really good job. And I think those are highlights for our community as well.
Those are wonderful highlights, and it's good to know. I attend Latino Business Alliance, and I found the King's Carpet Cleaning. Mm-hmm. He has a business that he's cleaning our carpets now, and he's a new business owner. Yeah. So it is great to remember that we have these local right. companies that let's just lift each other up. It's great. And the Marionberry's baseball, going out there on opening day, because the Hotel Salem's one of the sponsors, Julie sang the national. There was 1,800 people there that opening day, and to see all the kids, and you're looking around and they're buying merchandise. Yep. And
my son left this morning. Well, my family, except for myself and a couple other kids, left this morning for Iowa. At 2:30 this morning, they left the house, and their flight was at 5, I think. Anyway, he's wearing a Marionberry's hat, 8-year-old. So across the country, they're going to know about Marion Barry's baseball.
Right. So, and I know that they were supposed to be at Willamette, they went to Chemeketa, but I love seeing something positive in that area of town, being that it can be the high crime, the kiddos that, maybe they don't have the parents at home. So what he's done with the Marion Barry Pass and the kids can go in for free, I think that's much needed out there to have that positive, like, look at what we have in this part of town.
Yeah, I grew up a block away from there. Yeah, so, Chemeketa was our playground.
Yes, but I would encourage anyone watching to go to those games. I think they have like 15 or something more home games.
Okay.
The Portland Pickles were on 4th of July. They've done just a great job with marketing, and their mascot was a Ducks mascot, so he runs around, and so he's great and fun. That's just what's going well in our community. We have good things that we can just keep working on stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And you two are a prime example of doing it well. So thank you. Thank you for being on this podcast. Thank you for healthy conversation.
Thanks for having us. Yeah. It's been great.
And so have a great vacation. When's your next vacation, Rich?
Oh boy. I have the lake house up in Detroit.
Oh yeah. So it's lake summer season.
It's lake season. So
the lake's low though.
Oh yeah.
I hear the lake is low.
I hear you're trying to save some fish.
I'm trying to. Well, I'm trying. You want to hear a number? I got to throw this number out there. So the Army Corps guy has an update about the water, and he says, "Hey, we're gonna have a public meeting here." He says, "But there's no questions." He says, "You can fill out a comment card and put it over here, but afterwards, individually, we can answer questions." So we all had to sit there and listen to the reason that what we're doing to the dam, and so. They want to take out they're going to add taking out the hydropower. They're going to take the turbines out and decommission the dam and just the electrical part and to see if it increases the fish counts. And so I'm like, I can't ask a question, right? And like, I'm driving me nuts. So we get done. I go out to the front and there's a gal out there. And so I walked right to her. I says, "Hey, what's your budget for taking out the electrical to see if the fish will increase traveling through?" Well, we're at about 600 million right now, but that's not all in because that's just to get it decommissioned. But then we got to bring power because we got to take all the transmission lines out. Then we got to bring power back up, and then we got to put a backup power supply to put in case, because we got to operate the dam still. And I'm like, okay, I understand. 600 million. Well, what happens if it doesn't change the fish counts? Well, how much to put it back? Oh, Rich, it's not. It's what we're doing will decommission it forever. It won't be able. I said, well, so it's not really a study to see if it's going to increase fish. It's just we're taking hydropower.
This is what we're doing.
Enough electricity to power Eugene. We're taking that out of the system. Well, no, it's really we're doing it for. We're going to see. We believe it's going to.
Right.
We feel it's going to do better for the fish.
Oh my, 600 million.
Yeah. So it's like, oh my God. And taking all that power, So anyway.
I've just sat here for this whole hour saying I don't think people are malicious. That's when I think you chalk up. People are being malicious, right? They've got an ulterior motive of shutting down hydroelectric power. And the way we're going to do that is this facade of we're trying to save the fish.
Yeah.
Right.
No. That's not what you're doing. You have this agenda to shut down power
That's
dams.
an agenda.
Yeah.
That's that 1% agenda.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Very
Gosh
unfortunate.
darn, I didn't mean to end on a high point.
But do your homework. Get educated.
I want to enjoy Detroit and the lake, not Detroit the river.
Yeah. This Detroit the stream.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Do your homework, people, if you're watching.
Yeah.
And thank you to Bill and Rich.
All right.
Over and out.
Thank you.
Big shout out and a big thank you to Valor Mentoring that recorded the video and audio for this podcast, Changing Lives That Change Lives. And thank you to Remodeling by Classic Homes for sponsoring this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us at the kitchen table with Soraida and friends. Please follow us on social media. You can find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your podcasts.